Welcome back to the Elias Makos Show and the third hour of this program. We're a couple of days away from the quote-unquote moving day in this province, but the housing crisis and the housing issues we're seeing go well beyond what's going to happen over the next couple of days. These are issues that have grown in recent years. On now to discuss the housing crisis is the mayor of Montreal, Madame la Mairesse Valerie Plante. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me, Mr. Makos.
It's always great talking to you, but we got a serious issue to discuss.
Yes.
So you won election November 5th, 2017, okay? So you've been mayor of the city for around 6 years. In that 6 years, the situation for housing in the city has exponentially gotten worse. Since you have been mayor, the situation on housing has exponentially gotten worse. How much responsibility do you take for the current situation in housing?
Well, that is a very good question because sometimes it can get confusing for citizens to understand, like, who builds houses, like, what does the municipal do, federal, provincial. So maybe I can explain that for a city like Montreal. What we've decided to do, though it's not in our core business to build houses, like that's not what we do, that's not what a city does, but we decided to acquire a lot of lands and building in order to then build some with a non-for-profit organization and the government of Quebec, who is responsible for social housing, to build those houses, those units that are so necessary. So in the first mandate, we were able to reach a point where, with the efforts we've put together to build about, and when I say we don't build, but to support organization that does build, about I would say 12,000 units, social and affordable. But right now, that number, it's not enough. Of course, there has to be more and more and more. So what we've decided to do, the City of Montreal, is to invest $600 million over the next 10 years to continue to buy lands and buy buildings to protect the affordability, which is, it's still affordable in Montreal if we compare to Toronto and Vancouver, but it's quite fragile. So how do we make sure that those renting units keep a price that is accessible to a lot of people? But again, it's very important for me, for the listeners, to hear that there has to be a bigger effort done by the federal and the provincial, in which it is their responsibility, but we are more than willing to support by building more and in different areas.
Respectfully, Madame la Mairesse, I feel a little bit of a disconnect here, right? Because, on the environment, you go out of your way, your administration goes out of your way to say, you know what, our administration, we can affect climate change. It's a global issue, and stuff that happens in China and Texas matters in climate change. And you say, we are the ones that can actually do something. Yet right now, your last answer sort of seems like, well, you can't do anything about the price of rent on the corner of Côte-des-Neiges and Queen Mary. And I would think you'd have you would be far more capable in your position to affect housing and rents than other issues. So I see a disconnect. In some other issues, you're like, we can do it. And here you're like, right, well, we need help from others.
I really feel like, with all due respect, that it's exactly what I did not say. And to be said that we're disconnected, to me, is really hurtful, because I came into politics talking about housing, where for cities, it's not part of what we usually do. And when I just said that we decided in the last budget to spend $600 million to buy land and building to transform them for social and affordable housing, I really do not agree with what you're saying. And I think maybe it's not to say that you don't understand the complexity around it, but there is a complexity working with the private sector, which we do. But the reality is, when it comes to social housing, Mr. Makos, it is part of the responsibility of any state, like the government of Quebec, to support the most vulnerable. So we're doing everything we can. And when you talk about supporting, when we ask the government to do a registry, a rental registry, it's because cities, I don't have power over the private sector saying, hey, keep the prices low. Right now there's a competition because there's not enough housing, and so the prices are going high and high in the private market. Mm-hmm. We're asking everybody to take their responsibility, but for sure, I cannot take your comment that we're just sitting and watching the parade go by.
I didn't say you were sitting. I didn't say you were sitting and watching.
Said that we were disconnected.
You pointed to the province. You pointed to Canada, and I'm just saying this. And I'm not trying to be hurtful, by the way. I think you know.
No, it's okay.
I think you know that all things considered, I've been a pretty strong proponent of many of your administration's policies. So I'm not trying to be hurtful here, but I'm looking at blue bonnets again. Like blue bonnets, crickets, nothing has happened. Bridge Bonaventure, movement that's not fast enough. We're really close to the old Molson site and the old Radio-Canada site, and things are just slow. And I want to read you a text message. Elias, I'm a proud Montrealer. I want to share you this information. I'm trying to build a 16-unit apartment here in Montreal. We submitted preliminary drawings to the city May 4th of this year. And if there's a shortage of housing in Montreal, why is the city taking longer to submit approval for construction? The city told us it will take anywhere from 6 months to a year before we even get an answer. So, you know, when it's a bad crisis, I think some things need to go to the top of the list. And the point I'm trying to make is perhaps over the last 6 years, this wasn't at the top of the list when it should have been.
Well, I mean, it is your opinion, and I respect it, and I'm not going to go against any comments that are coming in, because if I would say that the system is perfect, I would be lying, and we're always improving. But I do think at this point, to say that we don't put it as a priority, to say that we are disconnected, to me is really hurtful. And it's okay. I mean, I respect your opinion, but it is important for me as mayor of Montreal trying to push this issue. I'm the mayor in Canada and in Quebec that is pushing the most and have been investing the most. And like I said, the investment that I just told you about is not little money. It's a lot. And we've saved building in Manoir-La-Fontaine in Plateau Montréal. There's going to be people living in it. Same thing for in Verdun. We are investing and investing.
What happened in Blue Bonnet? What happened to Blue Bonnets where developers said no thanks to developing at Blue Bonnets? What happened over the last 6 years on that dossier?
So actually for the Blue Bonnet dossier, no, actually it's not true. The one that was done for non-for-profit, entirely affordable, there were a lot of people that said, yes, there's going to be a project coming in. So it's not all black or white. And also we decided to work with the private sectors because there's no infrastructure under it. So we're talking about probably $800 million. And that's the biggest issue around Blue Bonnets. How do we make sure that, if we build buildings, we need to build underneath. There has to be transportation. We want to have an eco, neighborhood. So everything is being put, and we're working with the private sector and everybody to make sure that it will happen. And we're moving forward. And there was a lot of announcement on that front. So for me, I feel like we're moving. And you used as an example just before about Molson. Molson is moving very well. Le Quartier des Lumières, which is Radio-Canada, is moving. It's building. If you look around, and a lot of construction sites are actually moving, but I think it's also important to take something in consideration is that the more like a general economic ecosystem, like the fact that the Bank of Canada decided to raise the taux d'intérêt has a huge impact on building the cost of la main d'oeuvre and also the material. So all I'm saying is that I do hear the pain and the stress for a lot of people to find a place to live, but I'm dedicated to find solutions. But it's not true that I will take everything on my shoulder or housing.
I'm not asking you about, I just want to say, I'm not asking you to put it all on your shoulders. I really am not asking.
It's important for me to just point out the things that we're doing, but I do find that the housing crisis is not only in Montreal, it's throughout Quebec, it's throughout the country. And as long as we're going to see this as, only the rich can buy, well, it's not the reality right now. Vulnerable people cannot afford, and the middle class as well. So definitely, I want to find solution, but I'm going to point out what needs to be done from a bigger perspective.
Can you look back on the last 6 years and say, okay, I made a mistake on housing in is there one thing you regret that you would change about how you tackled housing over the last 6 years?
I find this question very, I don't know what to say to this. I've just said at the beginning that under our first mandate, 12,000 units were created in Montreal. Half were social and half were affordable. So for me, your premise is to say like we did something wrong, which we didn't. We've been pushing the envelope with bylaws to make sure that now everybody that builds in Montreal have to put social and affordable and family housing. No cities in the country does that. We've been pushing to make sure that the unsanitary housing will be taken care of. Protecting the existing location parks. So, I mean, can we always push and do better? Of course, but I have nothing to admit on that front, unfortunately, and actually, fortunately.
It's just the thing is, I look at the difference in rents. I mentioned the exponential growth in rents. You bring up Toronto, you bring up Vancouver. The grass isn't greener in those places, but when you look at the percentage increases, the increase has been higher here, right? And the stories I hear from people that are like, I was at $800 in rent, now the new place wants 16, 17, 18. I'm saying to myself, well, maybe something could have been different over the story of the last 6 years. Maybe there could have been something different. I guess what you're saying is not. You've done everything possible.
So I guess my point is I cannot, as a city, interfere with the private market. And this is where having a registry like we're asking to build more and to adapt our bylaws so we can support and give, permits faster, easier, which we've created like a unit right in Ville-Marie to support builders. All these things, we're putting them together because we need to support always better. But again, to me, I really feel like we're a strong voice when it comes to making sure that everybody in the ecosystem is together. But I'm definitely feeling for the people that are having trouble around the city and throughout Quebec as well.
Madame la Mairesse, we got to leave it there. I want to thank you very much for your time with us this morning. I do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And I wanted to wish you a happy birthday.
Man, we should have started off with the birthday, maybe. Listen, come back real soon. We'll talk again.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, that's Valerie Plante, the mayor of Montreal.